I was looking at the specs for the new iPhone the other day, and it's got a processor in it that essentially rivals a desktop computer from maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
Oh, yeah. It's wild.
Right. We are basically walking around with supercomputers in our pockets right now.
Yeah, it's incredible technology. I mean, the computing power is just off the charts.
It is, and we're on these 5G networks now that are honestly faster than the Wi-Fi I had in my house just a couple of years back. We have massive fiber optic cables running under the ocean connecting continents. We have built this absolutely massive high-speed global infrastructure.
Right, the golden age of connectivity.
Theoretically, yes. But here's my question, and it's the reason we are doing this deep dive today. Why does the web feel so much slower?
Oh, I know exactly what you mean.
I mean, I clicked a link for a restaurant menu yesterday. Just a PDF and menu, right? And I sat there watching a spinning wheel on my screen for long enough that I actually forgot what I wanted to order.
Ah, the spinning wheel of death.
Yeah.
Well, it's not just in your head. It is a highly measurable phenomenon. We actually have a specific term for it in the industry now. We call it the digital obesity crisis.
Digital obesity. Wow, that's a loaded term.
It is, but it really fits perfectly. Think about it. We've built these massive digital pipelines, the 5G, the fiber, the incredibly fast processors. But instead of using them for speed, we've just crammed them full of junk. We've basically allowed the content to expand to fill the pipe. And our mission for today's deep dive is to look at exactly why that's happening, and more importantly, why this website bloat is actually triggering a biological rejection in your brain.
Wait, biological rejection? That sounds really intense.
It is intense. We're going to look at how your brain processes even a split-second delay and why that fundamentally changes whether you trust a brand or not. It's basically neuromarketing meets computer science.
I love that. And for everyone listening, we have a really interesting stack of sources today to help us unpack this. First, we're looking at a technical audit of a real-world case study. It's a brand new photographer's portfolio site that is just completely struggling to survive online.
Yep, a great real-world example.
And we're pairing that specific audit with some pretty heavy research presentations on web performance metrics, the benefits of static HTML, and the psychology of user experience.
And the common thread across all these sources is deceptively simple. Complexity is killing performance. Whether it's Google deciding how to rank you or a human being deciding whether to trust you, the data says the web desperately needs to go on a diet.
Okay, let's start with the patient, if you will. This case study in the source material, it's a brand new website for a professional photographer. Now, visually, I'm looking at the screenshots included in the report, and it's honestly stunning.
Oh, absolutely.
High-res images, super modern layout, very sleek typography.
Sure, it looks great on the surface.
But when the auditors popped the hood, what did they actually find?
Digital silence.
Oof.
Yeah. The site had absolutely zero organic traffic. It was effectively invisible.
Which is just a nightmare for a new business. You spend thousands of dollars on a site, you launch it, you tell all your friends, and then crickets.
Exactly. But the audit broke down exactly why. And it wasn't a mystery at all. It was a complete structural failure. For starters, let's talk about heading tags. You know, the H1s, H2s, H3s in the code.
Okay, I feel like I know this vaguely from high school computer class, but remind us, this is basically the outline of the internet, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Think of it like reading a textbook. You have the main title of the book, that's your H1. Then you have chapter titles, those are H2s.
Yeah.
And you have subsections within the chapters, H3s.
Makes sense.
Right. And Google search bots, they don't see a website visually the way you and I do. They read the raw code.
Yeah.
They actively look for that H1 tag to say, okay, this is what this specific page is fundamentally about.
So they're relying on that structure to understand the importance of the content.
Precisely. Now, this photographer's site, it was just a massive sea of H1 tags. Literally every headline, every little photo caption, every contact me button was tagged in the code as an H1.
Oh, wow. So to Google, everything is basically shouting at the exact same volume.
Yes. There's zero hierarchy. If everything is the main title, then nothing is important. Google looks at that and just sees a chaotic wall of noise. It doesn't know how to index it properly, so it essentially just ignores it.
That seems like such a basic mistake to make. But the audit also flagged something else that I think a lot of people probably overlook because they don't experience it personally. They called out missing focus states.
Yes, I'm really glad you caught that in the reading. That's a huge one. So a focus state is that little outline, usually a blue box that appears around a button or a link when you tab through a website using a keyboard.
Right. I do that sometimes if I'm filling out a long form, just hitting the tab key to jump to the next text box.
Exactly. Now, I want you to imagine you have a motor impairment that makes using a mouse difficult.
Mm,
Or maybe you're visually impaired and using a screen reader. You
mm.
rely entirely on that keyboard navigation.
Right.
The focus state is basically your cursor. It tells you where you are on the page. On this particular site, the custom design theme had completely suppressed it. It was just gone.
So you're essentially locking the door on anyone with a disability. You're saying you can't use this site.
You are. And putting aside the ethical failure there, which is obviously significant, Google penalizes this heavily now. Accessibility is a core ranking factor. If your site isn't usable by everyone, Google isn't going to recommend it to anyone. It's a massive trust signal for the algorithm.
Okay, so the underlying structure is messy and it's not accessible. But then we get to the real villain of this story, the speedometer.
Oh yeah, this is the absolute smoking gun of the audit. They ran a standard mobile speed test on this site. Out of 100 possible points, it scored a 36.
Oof, 36. That's a solid F. That's summer school territory.
It's barely even participating. In the world of SEO, a 36 is catastrophic. And the specific culprit identified in the source is something I see in probably 90% of modern small business websites today. It was described as being bloated with JavaScript.
Let's unpack that for a second. We're not talking about the content itself being the problem, right?
Yeah.
It's not that the photos were just too high resolution or the text was too long.
Not necessarily, no. This is usually the platform's fault. We're talking about those really popular drag-and-drop website builders, your Squarespace, your Wix, or really heavy premium WordPress themes.
Sure, and those are generally amazing tools because they let anyone build a website without actually knowing how to code.
Which is a good thing. It democratizes the web. In theory, yes. But to make it so easy for you to just drag a text box across the screen, the platform has to inject a massive amount of code behind the scenes. It needs all that script just to tell the browser how to render that box you moved.
Ah,
We call it the no-code tax. To make it easy for the human to build, they make it incredibly hard for the browser to read and load.
so you basically pay for convenience with performance.
Exactly. And in this specific audit, they pointed out the hero image. You know, that big, beautiful, splashy photo right at the very top of the homepage that's supposed to grab your attention immediately.
Yeah, the main visual hook.
Right. Well, the audit found that image was, quote, JavaScript dependent.
What does that actually mean in practice?
It means the image file wasn't just sitting there in the simple HTML code waiting to load.
Mm.
The user's browser had to download a complex script, parse through that script, and execute it just to figure out, oh wait, I'm actually supposed to show a picture here.
And how much of a delay did that cause?
The audit clocked it taking up to 10 seconds.
10 seconds. In internet time, that's an absolute eternity. That's like waiting an hour for a cup of coffee.
Exactly. If I'm landing on a photographer site where the entire point is looking at the images and I have to wait 10 full seconds to see the very first photo, I'm gone. I've hit the back button.
You and literally everyone else.
The source material refers to this metric as time to interactive. It's incredibly important. You might see something on the screen right away, like maybe a background color loads in, but if you can't scroll or click on a menu because your phone's browser is choking on all that JavaScript, the site feels completely broken.
Which brings us nicely to the broader trend mentioned in our second source, because this poor photographer isn't just an isolated outlier, right? This seems to be a systemic issue. The internet itself is just getting heavier every single year.
It really is. This is that digital obesity trend we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Let's look at the numbers from the source because they're pretty staggering. If you go back to 2012, the average web page was about 800 kilobytes in size.
Okay, so lean, efficient,
Yeah,
fast.
Right. Fast forward to 2016. Just 4 years later, that average number had tripled to 2.2 megabytes.
Tripled in 4 years.
Yes. And if we look at the projections they have for 2025, the average page is pushing 2.8 megabytes, and it's still climbing.
So tying this back to my intro, our mobile networks and phones got way faster, but developers just filled up all that extra bandwidth with code bloat.
Exactly. It's essentially Parkinson's law applied to internet bandwidth.
Yeah.
Data expands to fill the pipe available. Developers frankly got a bit lazy because the hardware got so much faster, they stopped optimizing their code.
But what actually is all that extra weight? If it's not the actual content or the images, what are we downloading when we go to a site?
It's usually third-party scripts. Think about a typical business website today. You've got the Facebook pixel running for tracking ads.
Right.
You've got a Google Analytics script. You've got a Hotjar script recording heat maps of where people are moving their mouse. You've got a little customer service chatbot widget popping up in the corner. You've got an embedded Instagram feed plugin.
Wow. It's like walking out of the house wearing 5 heavy winter coats and dragging a massive suitcase behind you just to go check the mail at the end of the driveway.
That's exactly what it is. And here's the real irony. None of that stuff helps the user. All those heavy scripts are exclusively for the business owner's benefit. The marketing, the tracking, the analytics.
Yeah.
But the heavy cost of loading it all is paid by the user in latency. You are quite literally making your customer carry your heavy luggage for you.
That is a brilliant way to put it. And that cost isn't just a minor annoyance for the user. This is where this deep dive gets incredibly fascinating to me. We have this whole section from the source on the psychology of speed. The research claims this latency actually changes how the human brain perceives the brand itself.
This is where neurology directly meets technology. The source cites a study showing that a delay of just 500 milliseconds, literally half a second, causes a highly measurable spike in user frustration, specifically a 26% increase in frustration.
Half a second. That is basically a blink. Do we actually consciously notice that?
Your conscious mind might not actively say, hey, this website is slow, but your brain constantly creates prediction models. When you tap a button on a screen, your brain immediately predicts a specific visual result.
Okay.
When that expected result is delayed, even by a few milliseconds, it creates what neurologists call a prediction error. And that error registers in your brain as cognitive friction.
And friction feels like what? Like danger? Or just incompetence?
In evolutionary terms, friction means something is wrong. It feels like untrustworthiness. The stats in the presentation show that emotional engagement drops by 8% the very moment that lag hits.
Wow.
Think about that. Before they've even read your clever headline, before they've seen your amazing product, their brain has already released a little hit of cortisol. They are defensively priming themselves to leave your site.
That completely reframes how I think about the bounce rate metric. It's not just impatience or a short attention span. It's a fundamental lack of trust.
Exactly. You broke the subconscious promise of how things should work. And the business numbers back that up aggressively. 53% of users will abandon a site completely if it takes more than 3 seconds to load. 3 seconds.
So if you're that photographer from the audit with the 10-second load time, you don't really have a public website. You have a private gallery that nobody ever sees.
Exactly. And the source goes further. For every single 1-second delay in page load, conversions drop by roughly 20%.
So if you're selling something online, you are literally burning 20% of your potential revenue for every extra second of lag you introduce with bad code.
It's incredible. We are talking about billions of dollars globally being lost to bad code and bloated widgets.
Okay, so we fully diagnosed the disease here. Digital obesity, bloated JavaScript, neurological rejection from the users. What is the cure? The source materials suggest something that sounds, well, honestly, it sounds a bit retro to me.
It does sound retro, but it's actually cutting edge in its pure simplicity. The proposed answer is static HTML.
Okay, for the non-coders listening, which definitely includes me, can we distinguish that from what they're likely using right now? How is a static HTML site different from a WordPress or a Squarespace site?
Let's use an analogy. Think of a dynamic website like a standard WordPress setup as a busy restaurant kitchen.
Okay.
When you click a link to visit a page, you are effectively placing an order with a waiter. The waiter runs back to the kitchen, which is the server. The chef has to go into the walk-in fridge, which is the database, find the correct ingredients, chop them up, cook the meal, which means assembling the page code, plate it, and then the waiter finally brings it out to you.
Right, that's the processing time. That takes a minute to happen.
Right. It happens on demand, entirely from scratch, every single time a user visits a page. Even if 10 people ordered the exact same digital sandwich, the chef cooks it from scratch 10 separate times.
Got it. And static HTML?
Static HTML is a vending machine.
A vending machine. I like that.
The sandwich is already made. It's wrapped up. It's sitting right there in the slot behind the glass. You push the button, it drops. Instant delivery.
Because there's absolutely no cooking or processing happening on the server side.
Zero processing. It is literally just delivering a pre-existing text file. And the source outlines 4 massive benefits to running things this way. First, obviously, is the speed. Because there's no processing, it's basically instant. Second is crawlability.
which directly helps our SEO problem.
Immensely. Google loves static sites because they are just raw, simple text and code. The Google bot doesn't have to spend time executing heavy JavaScript to see what's on the page. It saves their computing resources, so they reward your site with better visibility.
Makes total sense. And the third benefit?
Security. This is a huge one for small businesses. If you have a WordPress site, you have a database, you have an admin login page, those are literal doors that automated hackers can try to pick open constantly. A static site. It's literally just plain text files sitting on a server. There is no dynamic database to hack into. There is no login screen to brute force.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to break into a house that fundamentally doesn't have any doors.
Exactly. And finally, the fourth benefit is sheer efficiency. There's a really great stat in the presentation about hosting. One of the sources mentioned they host dozens of websites on a single, super cheap, shared hosting plan.
Really?
Yeah, because these sites are completely static, they were using only 24% of the tiny disk storage allowance and almost zero CPU power.
Wow, it's incredibly efficient. It's actually way better for the environment, too, if you think about the energy usage of massive server farms.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Less processing power required directly translates to less electricity consumed.
But I have to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Right.
If static HTML is so unbelievably fast, so secure, and so cheap to host, why isn't everyone just doing it? Why did we all move away to these heavy CMS platforms in the first place?
Convenience. That is the ultimate trade-off. To update a static site, traditionally, you actually needed to know how to write code. You couldn't just log into a nice dashboard and fix a typo in a blog post. You had to open the raw HTML file, make the edit, and re-upload it to the server manually.
Right, and modern marketing teams need to be able to just post blogs or update prices without having to call an expensive developer every Tuesday.
And that's a completely fair point. The expert in our source material actually includes a very clear caveat about this. Static HTML is absolutely perfect for brochure sites. Things like portfolios, local business pages, simple blogs, landing pages. But it is not suitable for a site like Amazon.
Right, because if you have a massive complex inventory that changes every single second, or you have user accounts.
Right. If you need a customer to log in securely to see their past order history, or if there's a dynamic live inventory count for concert tickets, you absolutely need a database. You knew that restaurant kitchen cooking custom meals on demand.
Yeah.
But the core argument here is that the vast majority of the web, the local bakery, the neighborhood dentist, the freelance consultant, the wedding photographer, they do not need Amazon's level of dynamic infrastructure. They are basically using an 18-wheeler truck just to carry one bag of groceries home.
And completely running over their customers' patience in the process.
Metaphorically, yes.
Yeah.
Very much so.
So let's say our struggling photographer listens to this deep dive. They decide to burn it all down. They scrap the heavy, bloated template site, and they go lean with static HTML. They completely fix the speed issue. Are they automatically going to rank #1 on Google the next day?
Unfortunately, no. Speed is the admission ticket to the stadium. It is not the trophy. It just gets you back in the race. You still have to play the actual game of SEO. The source outlines the three main pillars of SEO, and technical performance, the speed and code, is just one of those three pillars.
Okay, what are the other two?
Content and backlinks. You still need quality content. You have to actively answer the user's specific questions better than anyone else on the internet. And you need backlinks, meaning other credible websites linking over to your site, which act as digital votes of confidence.
The presentation did actually offer some specific quick wins for ranking, specifically aimed at this struggling photographer. I want to run through these because they seem super actionable for anyone listening who currently manages a website.
Yeah, let's do it. They are great tips.
First one on the list was breadcrumbs. Now, I see these all the time on sites. It's that little text trail at the top, like home arrow services arrow wedding photography. But I never really thought of them as an actual SEO tool.
Oh, it's a huge SEO tool. It definitely helps users navigate backwards, sure. But it also creates a very clear internal link structure that tells the Google bot exactly how your site is logically organized. It's essentially handing a map directly to the crawler. It perfectly reinforces that hierarchy we talked about earlier with the header tags.
That makes a lot of sense. The second tactic they listed, adding a dedicated FAQ section.
This is honestly one of my favorite strategies. Think about how real people use Google today. They don't just type in robotic keywords like photographer Dallas anymore. They ask full questions. How much does a wedding photographer cost in Dallas? Do I get to keep the raw digital files? How long does the editing process take?
And voice search with things like Siri and Alexa has probably accelerated that behavior too. We just talk to our devices like they're people now.
Massive acceleration, exactly.
Yeah.
If you have an FAQ page on your site that matches those specific questions verbatim, you are strongly signaling to Google that you have the exact, precise answer the user is looking for.
And that ties perfectly into the third tactic, which the source called the Google Zero hack, which honestly sounds like a video game cheat code.
Kinda feels like one when it works. Position 0 is what the industry calls that special highlighted snippet you see at the very top of the search results sometimes. It's that answer box that appears before the actual first standard link.
The I don't even need to click to get the answer box.
Exactly. To get your site featured up there, the source highly suggests using something called schema markup on your FAQ pages.
Schema? What is that?
Schema is basically a hidden label you put in your HTML code that explicitly tells Google, hey, this specific string of text right here is a question, and this paragraph right below it is the definitive answer. It spoon feeds the data directly to the algorithm in a machine language it understands perfectly.
Wait, so you're basically making it incredibly easy for Google to just scrape and steal your content without them clicking your link.
In a way, yes. You're giving away the answer, but in exchange for that, they put your brand name and link at the absolute top of the page. It establishes massive brand authority. If Google trusts you enough to feature you as the definitive answer, the user subconsciously trusts you too.
Fascinating trade-off. The last tactic mentioned in the source was about leveraging local context. The presentation pointed out that a brand new site can't just launch and expect to rank for a massive, broad term like photography Los Angeles.
It's just too competitive. You're fighting head-to-head with entrenched sites that have been building backlinks for 15 years. You have to flank them.
And how do you do that?
By being hyper-specific and local. Instead of trying to rank for Los Angeles photography, you read a really detailed blog post about the best engagement shoot locations in Silver Lake, or a specific lighting guide for shooting at the Disney Concert Hall. You build up your authority on the extreme edges of the topic first.
Okay, so you capture all that highly motivated niche traffic, you build up the trust signals over time, and then you slowly move toward competing for the bigger keywords.
It's the long game. SEO is always a marathon. And this really brings us full circle to the main point. You can't even run the marathon if your shoelaces are tied together at the starting line. And that's exactly what a bloated, slow website is.
Right, because no one stays around long enough to actually read that brilliant, hyper-specific article about Silver Lake if the page takes 10 agonizing seconds to load.
Exactly. We very often think of SEO as this magical, highly technical, dark art of keywords and algorithms. But at its absolute core, Google's primary goal is just to keep its users happy. If you send a user to a slow, broken, frustrating website, you are making Google look bad for recommending it, so they simply won't do it.
You know, it's really funny. We started this whole conversation talking about pure technology, JavaScript, H1 tags, server response times, but we really ended up talking about basic empathy.
Yeah, that's definitely the biggest takeaway from all these sources for me. Performance isn't just a technical metric for developers to worry about. It's an empathy metric. It's about deeply respecting the user's valuable time. It's about understanding their cognitive load and actively choosing not to add to it.
We really do tend to overcomplicate things just because we can. We have all these incredibly powerful tracking tools and widgets, so we feel like we are obligated to use them all.
Right. But the most advanced, effective move you can make in digital design is very often just to simplify, to aggressively strip away the clutter. It's more efficient, it's dramatically cheaper to run, it's greener for the planet, and ultimately it's just a much more human experience.
Performance is empathy. I really like that. That's absolutely something I'm going to remember the next time I'm sitting there waiting for a PDF menu to load on my phone.
It's a very good mantra for building things in 2025.
So, as we wrap up, here is our specific challenge for you today. We now know that the human brain literally starts to reject a brand after just a split second of delay. We know half your potential audience is completely gone at the 3-second mark.
So pull out your phone right now. Disconnect from your fast home Wi-Fi. Get on regular 4G or 5G to mimic a real user out in the real world. Type in your company's URL or your personal portfolio site. Hit go and start counting.
1, 2, 3.
If you are still staring at a blank white screen or a spinning wheel when you hit 3, you have a serious problem. Your digital front door is physically stuck.
And it might just be time to call a contractor to take it off the hinges entirely and replace it with something just a little bit lighter.
Simplicity definitely sells.
Thanks so much for diving deep with us today.
See you on the next deep dive.